It started like every other day's, calm, with the usual political noise in the air. But by noon, things had already taken a different turn. The controversial Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, a project that many Nigerians believe was rushed, too expensive, and not properly explained to the public. What triggered the latest uproar wasn't the project itself this time, but something that happened live on national television. The Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, had appeared on Arise News for an interview, and one of the anchors, Rufai Oseni, asked him a simple but direct question: what's the cost of the project per kilometer? It was a question many Nigerians had wanted answered for weeks. Billions of naira had already been mentioned in reports, but nobody could clearly state how much each kilometer would cost or how the figures were calculated. But instead of answering, Umahi got visibly angry. He dismissed the question, accused the host of trying to embarrass him, and said people who didn't understand engineering shouldn't talk about the project. That moment went viral. Nigerians didn't miss it. Clips of the exchange spread across social media like wildfire. Many people felt insulted. It wasn't just about the numbers anymore, it became about respect, accountability, and attitude. People began asking, if a minister can't tell us how much 1 kilometer of road costs, then what exactly is going on? Within hours, the conversation turned political. Commentators, journalists, and ordinary citizens began weighing in. Some defended Umahi, saying the question was too technical. Others insisted that if a minister in charge of works cannot explain how public money is being spent, then he is not fit for the office. The tension online grew. Everyone waited to see who among Nigeria's top politicians would react. Then came Peter Obi after some days. Calm as always, but direct and fearless. And he replied in his usual peaceful but firm tone. He didn't shout, he didn't mock anyone, but his words carried a weight that immediately shifted the entire discussion. He said, if you're not answerable to Nigerians, then you don't have Nigerians' interest at heart. That sentence landed like a hammer. Straight, sharp, and unfiltered. In those few words, Obi summarized what millions of Nigerians were feeling. He didn't mention any name, but everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. It was clear, simple, and truthful. For Obi, the problem wasn't personal. It wasn't about attacking anyone's personality or qualifications. It was about the principle of leadership. In his view, anyone who holds a public office is a servant of the people, not their ruler. And that means being ready to answer even the toughest questions from citizens, journalists, or anyone who seeks clarity. Obi went on to explain that governance is built on trust. When leaders avoid questions or act angry when the people seek information, they break that trust. He made it clear that Nigeria cannot move forward if officials continue to treat public funds like personal money. His words were calm, but the message was loud: a leadership comes with accountability. Many Nigerians nodded in agreement. They could relate to the frustration of seeing public officers act defensive when asked about money that belongs to the people. The coastal highway, which was supposed to be a source of national pride, had suddenly become a symbol of confusion and poor communication. Obi's calm response, however, brought a different kind of energy to the debate. It reminded people that asking questions is not an act of disrespect, it's a right. When a project is funded by taxpayers, every Nigerian deserves to know how much is being spent and why. In that moment, Obi was not just speaking as a politician, he was speaking as a citizen who believed in accountability. He didn't raise his voice or sound emotional, but his tone carried the weight of reason. People could feel the sincerity. They could sense that he was saying what they all wanted to say, but in a measured and intelligent way. The quote quickly began trending online. News outlets picked it up. Headlines flashed across social media platforms: Peter Obi slams Minister Umahi, if you're not answerable to Nigerians, then you don't have Nigerians' interest at heart. Even people who didn't support Obi politically couldn't ignore the truth in what he said. Many described it as a wake-up call for public officials. Some commentators said it perfectly captured the current mood of the nation, a population tired of arrogance in leadership and hungry for transparency. And while Umahi's television appearance continued to draw criticism, Obi's statement became the new headline. His calm tone made it even more striking. It wasn't loud, but it was firm. It wasn't emotional, but it was honest. He didn't argue, he reasoned. He didn't insult, he corrected. That moment showed again why Obi's voice carries so much weight in Nigeria's political conversation. He knows how to speak plainly but with depth. He knows how to connect with the people's emotions without sounding angry. His message was simple: leadership without accountability is like building a road that leads nowhere. The story had taken over social discussions nationwide. Nigerians weren't just talking about the coastal highway anymore, they were talking about responsibility, respect, and the kind of leadership they wanted to see. Peter Obi had managed to turn what looked like a technical argument into a national reflection. And the message was clear: when leaders forget they are servants of the people must remind them who they work for. Peter Obi's calm but firm words had already taken over the airwaves. Clips of his reply were playing everywhere, from morning radio talk shows to online political debates. What made it even more powerful was how simple and direct it was. There were no fancy words, no long grammar, just truth. And that truth was now echoing across the country. The minister's outburst on Arise News had left a bitter taste. Nigerians were still replaying the clip. Rufai Oseni, the anchor, had only asked a clear question: what is the cost per kilometer of the coastal highway? It was a question every citizen deserved to know because it was their money being spent. But instead of giving a figure, Umahi flared up. He accused the journalist of being disrespectful, talked around the issue, and never gave a straight answer. That was what made Obi's reaction so strong. It wasn't just about the project anymore, it was about the attitude of those in power. And in his response, Obi showed once again why many Nigerians respect his leadership style. He said calmly, public office is not a private business. When you're using taxpayers' money, the people have the right to ask questions. When they do, you don't get angry. You explain. His tone was peaceful, but his message hit harder than any angry speech could. Nigerians felt represented in those words. They felt like someone finally said what they had been shouting for years. For them, Obi's statement wasn't political, it was patriotic. He continued, we cannot build a nation where people in leadership positions believe they owe no one an explanation. Accountability is not optional, it is the foundation of good governance. Every line from Obi came out with clarity and purpose. It wasn't an attack on Dave Umahi as a person, it was a defense of the Nigerian people's right to know. He was speaking for those who had lost trust in government officials who treat questions like insults and treat citizens like intruders in their own country's affairs. Soon after, journalists asked Umahi again about Obi's comment. He tried to wave it off, saying he had too much work to do to respond to political statements. But even that response didn't calm the storm, it made it worse. Nigerians flooded comment sections, demanding that the minister answer the question once and for all. Because at the heart of the issue, it wasn't about pride. It was about figures, transparency, and respect. People wanted to know, how much is being spent per kilometer? Who awarded the contract? How much was budgeted, and how much was paid? In another interview, Obi explained further, saying, when you are handling a project of this scale, you are dealing with the future of a nation. You cannot act like the people don't deserve answers. You don't get angry when citizens ask questions, you get angry when they don't. That sentence carried weight. You could feel that he meant every word. It reminded Nigerians that public service is not a throne, it's a duty. When you hold office, you are answerable not to yourself, but to the millions who trusted you with their taxes and their hope. Obi went on to question why Nigerian projects often start with grand announcements but end with confusion and silence. He said leaders should be proud to show figures, proud to explain how funds are spent, and proud to justify every kobo. If you are transparent, you don't get defensive, he said. You simply explain. Nigerians loved that point because it spoke directly to the frustration many feel whenever a simple question turns into a shouting match on TV. People want honesty, not hostility. They want leaders who listen, not those who lecture. Political commentators described Obi's response as one of the most measured but powerful reactions in recent times. It was neither emotional nor political, it was moral. Some said it was the type of accountability speech that every leader should memorize. Others said it was proof that leadership can be firm without being rude, strong without being loud, and honest without being proud. Even among the political class, some quietly admitted that Obi had a point. A few governors and senators reportedly told their aides that transparency must become the new standard. The idea that citizens should not question leaders was slowly being challenged by a single calm statement. Meanwhile, on the streets and online, Nigerians were drawing comparisons. They said, "This is how leadership should sound." Others wrote, "If we had 10 people like Obi in government, the country would change." It became clear that Obi had once again touched a national nerve, the people's hunger for accountability and respect. Later that evening, when asked if he regretted his comment, Obi simply replied, "There's nothing to regret when you speak the truth." It was simple, straight, and honest, the kind of answer that leaves no room for confusion. His words continued to echo into the night. Many Nigerians played his clips over and over, using them as motivation, as hope that maybe, one day, leaders would truly understand what it means to serve. In every conversation, one message kept repeating: if you're not answerable to Nigerians, then you don't have Nigerians' interest at heart. And that was more than a quote, it became a mirror held up to power, reflecting a truth that every public official in Nigeria could no longer ignore. Obi's words had completely taken over the national conversation. Every major platform, from radio stations to online newspapers, was replaying the clip. The message was simple but sharp: if you're not answerable to Nigerians, then you don't have Nigerians' interest at heart. It wasn't a political outburst. It was a truth that cut through every excuse, every cover-up, every attempt to dodge accountability. People across the country began reflecting on what that sentence really meant. It wasn't just about Dave Umahi anymore. It was about every public official who forgets that they are answerable to the people who put them in office. It was about a country where simple questions are treated like insults and transparency feels like a privilege instead of a right. Obi's calm approach had managed to touch the heart of the issue: leadership without accountability. He didn't insult anyone, didn't raise his voice, but he spoke with the confidence of someone who understood what true service meant. His calmness made it even more piercing. Nigerians were not only listening, they were agreeing. At bus stops, in offices, and in markets, the same question kept coming up: why should a minister get angry over a simple question about public money? The ordinary people couldn't understand why leaders always feel attacked when asked to explain how funds are used. The question wasn't complicated. It wasn't technical. It was basic. How much does 1 kilometer of this project cost? Even civil engineers began stepping forward online, saying the question was completely fair and should have been easy to answer. The refusal to give a direct figure raised eyebrows and fueled suspicion that something deeper was going on. Nigerians had seen this pattern before: projects that start with noise and end in silence, contracts that begin with promises but end in confusion. And now, Peter Obi had called it out again, not with anger but with sense. His tone made the issue impossible to ignore. When he said, "You cannot serve people you cannot respect," it hit home. It reminded Nigerians of how often their leaders forget that the people are the reason government exists at all. He added later, "Transparency is not a favor. It's a duty. If you handle public money, you must answer public questions. If you cannot explain, then something is wrong." That sentence spread like wildfire. It wasn't the kind of statement you hear from a politician trying to sound clever, it was a plain truth that everyone could understand. Nigerians loved the simplicity. It was what made Obi stand out. He didn't speak in riddles or long speeches. He spoke in a way that every market woman, every student, every worker could understand. As the day went on, reactions began pouring in from across the country. Some government officials tried to defend Umahi, saying he had been provoked. But Nigerians weren't buying it. They wanted accountability, not excuses. Social media was filled with clips of Obi's comment, edited with his voice over background music, as people quoted him in captions and posts. Political analysts on morning shows began calling Obi's reaction a wake-up call. They said it reminded the nation that leadership is not just about building roads, but about building trust. They explained that a road built without accountability is like a house built without a foundation. It looks fine from the outside, but it won't stand for long. Even among younger Nigerians, Obi's calm strength became a topic of admiration. Many said his style of leadership was the kind they wanted, one based on honesty, respect, and truth. They compared his words to the usual noise from politicians who talk endlessly but say nothing meaningful. Obi's words, on the other hand, were short but full of value. Later that evening, when journalists asked Obi why he spoke out, he replied simply, "Because the people deserve answers." That single line once again captured his entire message. It wasn't about politics or party lines, it was about the people. It was about responsibility. He went further to say, when Nigerians begin to ask questions and leaders start giving answers, that's when true development begins. It's not just about projects, it's about trust. Without trust, nothing built will last. Those listening could tell he meant every word. There was no showmanship, no pretense. Just clarity and conviction. By nightfall, the story had spread beyond Nigeria. International media outlets picked it up, noting how a simple question on national television had turned into a major debate about accountability and leadership in Africa's largest democracy. Obi's statement had turned what could have been another passing controversy into a defining conversation about how leaders treat the people they serve. It forced Nigerians to reflect deeply on the kind of governance they wanted going forward, one built on arrogance or one built on honesty. And the truth was clear, Nigerians were tired of arrogance. They were tired of leaders acting like questions are attacks. They were tired of being told to stop asking about what is rightfully theirs. Obi's voice became the calm but powerful reminder that democracy dies when citizens stop asking questions, and revives when leaders start answering them. In the end, his words became more than just a reaction to a minister's outburst. They became a reflection of a nation's pain, a nation's hope, and a nation's demand for better. Peter Obi had once again spoken truth without noise, and in doing so, reminded everyone that leadership is not measured by power, but by humility. Because in a country struggling to find its path, honesty is the only road that truly leads for war.